Hey guys, John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of EO Fire, and you're listening to Bravepreneur Parents Academy with Balaji O.
Welcome to Bravepreneur Parents Academy, where the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs reveal their most defining childhood moments and share their legacy for raising brave little heroes who will grow up to change the world. And now, he still reads comic books under the blanket at bedtime. Please welcome your host, best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and self-confessed geek dad, Balaji O. You know, like the hotel in Vegas? Yeah, no, that's really his name. Balaji O.
Hello and welcome to the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. You are speaking to Balaji O, and today we have the pleasure of listening to the man, the legend behind Fatherpreneurship.com. I'm speaking about Rodney Kellum. Fatherpreneurship is a new blog about parenting and family that is taking the internet by storm. Now, the vision for Rodney's Fatherpreneurship is to give moms and dads like you and me the tools to be more present and more engaged with their children, all while working smarter and not harder. So if that sounds good to you, I need you to lean in close, okay? Because Rodney's got some stories. Rodney's got some wisdom. He's about to share some nuggets with you and me. So if you're ready, give a warm welcome to Mr. Rodney Kellum. Welcome, Rodney.
Thank you, Balaji. I appreciate you reaching out and creating an outlet for parents to highlight them and tell our stories. It is a much-needed platform that many more of us need to do. So, again, thank you sincerely.
Yes, indeed. This is a distinct pleasure. I discovered Fatherpreneurship, I suppose, a couple of weeks ago, and I've been riveted because if you're nothing else, you are a storyteller, Rodney. Between your basketball adventures at the University of in Alabama and some of the stories that you tell about your current-day fatherhood, I'm always tuned in whenever you put out something new. So thank you for sharing of yourself and of your family.
Well, you're welcome. And I know just growing up, watching my mom tell stories in captivate rooms, that's just something that was ingrained in me and a part of my purpose. And so once I just acknowledged that and accepted that and instead of trying to do things the way that everyone else does and tell the stories and, put the kind of content that everyone else is doing, I just had to listen to my purpose, what's on the inside of me, and that's being transparent, that's telling my story, that's helping other men and women tell their stories. And ever since I made that transition, the blog has been picking up steam, and people have been really appreciating the stories and the testimonies that have been coming on to Fatherpreneurship.com.
Rodney, you have this term on Fatherpreneurship.com. It's called a Familypreneur.
Yes.
Familypreneur. And what is that? What does that mean?
So when my vision began, it was just men. I was just thinking about helping men because, I have a background of being a workaholic and not being present and engaged with my children. So when I became an entrepreneur, that was my motivation. I had a vision to help men. And as I continued to tell my story, women started getting on board. Women started working with me. Women started to partner with me. Women started to buy products I was promoting. And I was like, well, and I actually had someone ask, well, what about the mommypreneurs? Like, literally, what about mommypreneurs? I said, well, this is actually bigger than just fatherhood because there are also women that are workaholics that work two jobs. My mom was one of them. And I was like, well, I'm going to coin the term familypreneurship because everybody that's a parent isn't a mother or father. Everybody's a parent isn't a natural parent. Everybody that I want to help with isn't exactly a father. They're mothers, they're grandmas. So I realized I had to broaden my scope and to include my vision, to include in my vision all kinds of parents, all those that are supporting their family and growing a family, and that had to get beyond fatherhood. Even though my focus is still on men, my vision has increased to include everybody that's family-focused and wants to be more present and engaged.
Rodney, you talk about being a workaholic or a recovering workaholic and how there are a lot of other people that fit that mold. I want to dig into that a little bit because a lot of us were raised on this notion that basically work never killed anyone, okay? Mm-hmm. Work does not hurt you. Being hardworking that's a virtue, isn't it?
Yeah, but let's see, what's happened is we've been fooled into thinking that working until death is what hard work means, and that hard work is necessary. If you go and find a billionaire, maybe go to the Hamptons or something, and find a billionaire, I guarantee you they don't work hard, they work smart. And they may work hard at working smarter, but they don't spend 10, 12, 14 hours a day at their occupation or at their business. They learn how to automate their systems. They learn how to hire other people to do the work for them. And they are there with their families, living their lifestyle, living their dreams. But most Americans, in the Western Hemisphere of this world, Canada, South America, we've been taught to believe that from when we were an agrarian society and when the Industrial Revolution came, that long hours was what you did as a man to provide for your family. Even when Henry Ford introduced the 8-hour work week, right. It was still overtime became a thing. And even when they instituted a Monday through Friday thing, Saturday and Sunday was recovering from the Monday through Friday workload. And that idea that came from an industry that is dying still persists in men today. And what happened with me is back in 2008, when my son was very young, I had achieved what I thought was my dream job. I had worked, went to college for this at Alabama A&M University, to be perfectly clear.
Yes, sir.
I worked towards this. I'd been through worked at all the different companies to become a video editor, and I thought, I made it.
Oh, okay.
And I would spend all my time on making sure I was building a department from scratch by myself. So I gave up my second job or, cut back on it. I was there. I would leave when my son would sleep. I'd work, come home, and he'd sleep again, missing entire chunks of his life. And then two major things happened to me at that job that I thought was my dream job. One is I almost died, literally.
What?
My left artery began to close, which I didn't know at the time, but I found out because I was trying to walk down the hall and got incredibly dizzy and woozy, couldn't stand up. And being a former athlete, I know when my body is saying, hey, something's wrong. So I ended up going to the hospital, getting a heart catheter, stress test, and all these people in the hospital looking at me like, what are you doing here?
Wow.
I was 20.
Like how? Yeah.
I was like 26 at the time, I believe. And they're like, what are you doing here? Or maybe 28. I can't. It's hard to remember sometimes. But they're like, what are you doing here? You're too young. And I kept hearing this over and over and over. I'm like, you know what? I am too young. I don't belong here. I can do better with my health. And after that episode happened, almost dying, I was starting to wake up a lot more. I was starting to say, I want to be there with my son. I need more time with my son. And then one night here in Atlanta, it was a Monday night, and on Monday nights I would go play pickup basketball. And I leave the gym. I realized I got a bunch of missed calls. It's from work. I checked a couple of messages. I rush home because there's a babysitter with my son. I had to relieve the babysitter. So I go home, relieve the babysitter. My son's asleep. And I call my job. I'm like, Rodney, we need you to come in. They're so frantic. And wow. I'm like, well, what do you need? And they described what they need. I said, well, I'm here with my son by myself. I can't really come in. And it happened to be like 30 degrees here in Atlanta, which is freezing.
Of course.
That freezing rain, all that stuff. And I said, well, I think I can do what you need over email.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we need you to come in. We need you to come in, this, that, and go through the whole case again and again and again. And so let me check to see how close my wife is. Maybe when my wife gets home, I can come. Call my wife. She's not going to be home for an hour or so. Call back work. Hey, sorry, my wife's not going to be home. I'm home by myself. I got to take care of my son. But what you described to me is something I can handle through email. I was making this point.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, the company owner hops on, who, if you remember back in the 90s and 80s, people would put, get on three-way and mute yourself out. That's what he
Oh, yeah.
That's what he was doing the whole time. So he pops on, hey, this is, company owner X. Can't really say his name. Yeah. And he goes to the same spiel again. I explain to him again. I'm home alone with my son. I can't really leave. And this was a very defining moment in my life of what happened next. This man was a father. He had a daughter who was probably teenage at the time. He happened to be a millionaire or whatever. And he said these words. don't you have a stroller he can sleep in?
Wow.
And if you remember old cartoons, when the cartoon characters would get upset and all the steam would pop out.
Right.
Every curse word in my vocabulary began to come to the tip of my tongue. But I'm so glad I had some kind of professional restraint. And as my response came out with as much, restraint as possible, I said, that's not going to happen.
Wow.
And I calmed myself down and remade my case. What you're asking for, I can do through email. Mm-hmm. And they did. They sent me the information. I got the information, sent it through email. But what's so amazing was once I said the pin out of that's not going to happen,
yes.
I knew I was going to lose that job.
Really?
I just knew it. And so my wife finally came home about an hour and a half later.
Yeah.
First thing I say to her is, don't be surprised if I don't have a job tomorrow.
Wow.
And so I go to work, and where I park is I can look right into the company owner's office, and he's sitting with my boss, and I said, they're talking about me. I know it. The moment I step foot in the building, he pops out of there and says, hey, Rodney, can you meet us over in the meeting room over there? I'm like, yep, sure. So, and then it happened. I sat down and I said, Rodney, we decided not to work with you anymore.
Wow, that's outrageous.
But what's amazing was, having been let go one time prior to that, it was different. It was different in the fact that I stood up and I chose my family for the first time in my life over work. And I said to them, and the HR lady and my boss at the time, I said, anytime I'm asked to choose between my work and my family, I will always choose my family. And they try to come up with a reason why it wasn't that. I'm like, whatever. Yeah. And I paid a hefty cost. This was at a time where we were very financially struggling financially. We were living in a bedroom at a friends and family, family member, or not family, but friends that became family. They already had 4 children. This my wife, my son, and I in a 1 bedroom. He's in the crib next to the bed. Yeah. And I don't have a job anymore.
Wow.
And so what I tell these stories to really encourage people out there that feel stuck. Right. Where you feel like you have to do this job. Some people call it a just over broke. You have to work for this person, and you have to invest your life in a place that doesn't give you life back, and that's false.
Rodney, I need you to say that last part one more time because this is something that I've heard you say before. Could you phrase that one more time, please?
Exactly. No problem. You don't need to continue to give your life to places that don't give you life back. For instance, one of the many jobs I've worked, I walked in on my first day and I saw a condolences card to someone who had died within the past week at that job.
Wow.
And all they can give the family was a card of condolence and a now hiring sign in the window.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I can't let that be me.
Oh, my gosh.
I was just determined to now be the person who was always there for my children, the one that, they would remember when I leave this earth, that dad was always at birthday parties, events, weddings. he was there for birth of my grandchildren. I want them to remember me and have a life, a legacy in a place where I sowed my life in the right place.
Wow. Rodney, tell me a little bit about your airport incident.
Oh.
I remember you had an incident sleeping on some seats. What was going on there?
So this is another major turning point because I had a few. It took a few to really wake me up out of workaholism, but I had 2 family members pass away in the same week. One in Las Vegas, one in New Jersey. An aunt and an uncle from different sides of my family. And speaking with my grandmother, she said, go be with your aunt, go be with them. And even though I was still working, I got back to the 2-job thing. I was working hard again. I didn't have the money to buy a plane ticket. I didn't have enough money to get and be with either side of my family. So the first time in my life, I begged, I borrowed. I didn't steal. Don't do that. But I scrounged together the money to get to the funeral.
Wow.
And because I had to get a standby ticket, if anybody ever phoned standby, flying to Vegas, it happens to be a hot spot on a Friday.
Oh, boy.
And so I got bumped, and then I got bumped, and then I got bumped, and I got bumped again, to the point where I ended up spending the night in the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm 6'7", so it's not going to be comfortable no matter what.
Wow.
And here I am. It's me and the cleaning people in the airport.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got all my luggage close to me. I happen to be dressed up, expecting to go be with my family during the morning. And I'm laying on this bench, and I just got sick of not being able to afford to be where I needed to be with who I needed to be with. And I'm laying on this bench, and I raise my hand. I make a promise to myself that I'm going to do whatever it takes to be the kind of person that's present and engaged, that's available to whoever needs me to be available for love, for support, for financial support, whatever that is. I'm going to be available. And that's the moment I decided to start my business at that moment without having the money. Without having the money. I just knew it was going to happen. I was going to make it happen.
Interesting. And so, Rodney, you have a couple of children now, is that right?
Yes, I have a 6-year-old son who, when he was born, I knew things were going to change. And, thanks to him, making that, that decision between my job and him, he saved me from workaholism. And I have my daughter who's 1, will be 15 months tomorrow. I'm looking at her sort of sleeping, sort of waking up right now, deciding she's going to stay asleep.
Well, if she needs to come in on the conversation, that is totally fine.
Well, she makes plenty of cameos in my hangouts and interviews.
Yeah, we're all parents, so that's all good. So, okay, Rodney, we kind of got your story. We understand why you're so passionate about fatherhood and families. But let's go back a little bit. We want to know how Superman came to be. We want to go back into the childhood. So if that's okay with you, we're about to go through a lightning round. Can we do that real quick?
Let's do it. I feel like I'm on the couch at the psychiatrist's office. Let's do it.
If you need to cry at any point, just break out the tissue.
All right.
It's going to be all right. All right, Rodney, favorite superhero growing up?
It's always been Wolverine.
Oh.
Even though
good answer so far.
Even though Black Panther is starting to take over that position, it's always been Wolverine.
You know they're coming out with a movie, right?
Yes,
Black Panther?
that's one of the major reasons I might be changing my mind.
So it's been Wolverine, but that might change.
Might change.
Okay, good answer. Favorite video game growing up?
Oh, man. Okay. My favorite video game, that's a tough one. I'll put it like this. The first video game I ever beat on Nintendo Entertainment System was a game called 1942 with endless continues. It was a plane shooting game where it was like, you're back in World War II fighting the Japanese and all that stuff. So I got to give it to that because that's the first one I ever beat, even though I stayed up till like 12 o'clock doing it with one of my friends.
1942. I like that. Never seen that one before. What were you watching on TV as a kid? What was your favorite cartoon show? Everything
Saturday morning.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I watched so much TV growing up that TV was my other parent. I knew what time it was based on what TV show was on.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Did you guys have any family traditions that you still remember to this day?
Yes, and I still do it to this day, and that is always inviting someone you don't know, a stranger, someone who doesn't have family, to Thanksgiving dinner.
Really?
I still do my best to incorporate that. But I always remember, my mom. We didn't have much, but my mom always had a great Thanksgiving dinner, and she would always invite, whether it was the guy who ran the Xerox shop down the street, who all his family had died and left him, inviting him to Thanksgiving dinner, somebody who was transitioning from what's called halfway houses, trying to get free from addiction, whether it was just somebody that, she knew that, lived too far from their family or was going through depression. It was always somebody invited into our home for Thanksgiving dinner.
That's fascinating. I don't know if you got to watch the movie Straight Outta Compton.
Not yet.
Came out. Not yet. It was a well-done movie. But it reminds me of Tupac. Tupac made a little cameo in that movie, or an actor playing him anyway. And it reminds me a little bit of when he was growing up. His mom always used to bring in, she never knew a stranger, essentially. She used to bring in folks who needed help, who needed to get on their feet, and so on. That's not a common tradition, but it's a very admirable one. So hats off to your parents for doing that. So what was a most embarrassing moment that sticks with you from childhood?
So many. But I mean, because, I think you read the blog post about my one in college, but, in childhood, I was a very awkward child. I was always been very tall, always falling down, clumsy, because I had to took a long time to grow into my body. But for some reason, around sixth grade, I don't know what this, I can't remember the whole day, but I think that the kid's name was Derek. And I don't know if we started like roughhousing or whatever. And we're in class, like I sort of like recess indoors, and I'm scruffling his hair up or whatever. And I go in to do like I'm acting like a dog. I don't know, I can't explain this. It's really weird. I go into actually like bite him on the ear, but not like hard, but like, like this. But somehow he moved, and it's like a kiss. And he's like, you kissed me. I'm like, no, I'm trying to bite you. And that was like the weirdest thing that ever happened. Like, I was trying to bite him, but he moved, and I kissed the guy on his ear. That's weird.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was meant to be a bite. That's our story.
Just like, I hope no one hears this, right?
That's pretty hilarious. Yeah, that's a bad one.
Yeah. I'm sure I win an award for the most weird moments.
So kind of levity aside, Rodney, what are some things, maybe one big struggle that you went through as a child, either in those preteen years or as a teenager? What was one big struggle that you went through?
Well, the preteen years was like a graduation from my earlier childhood years, which were filled with, my mother's addiction, to getting clean off of her addiction, to living in Pasadena, California, which is Los Angeles County, where there's drugs, alcohol, gangs. And we moved to Pasadena officially. I spent the summers there in Sacramento, but we moved to Sacramento officially when I was 11 years old in 1991 or 2. Yeah, 92. And for me, it was an escape from all the crap that was happening. Every night at 8 o'clock, there'd always be a drive-by.
Wow.
Everybody was using or selling drugs, using alcohol. Everybody that I knew.
Wow.
Every vision of being black was a negative, stereotype, because that's what I saw. And every positive image was white, because that's what I saw. And moving to Sacramento was a relief, because even though the elements were there, it was not nearly as completely, just overflowing with the things that were going on in Southern California. So the preteen years were me breaking out of a shell, being extremely shy because of, what I was surrounded by, learning how to just stay to myself, live in my own head, my own imagination.
Yeah.
And really, being awkward around girls until I was about, 30. But no, all those things, the preteen years were me growing into my body, because I've been 6 foot since I was about 12 years old. So
wow,
always being the tallest person in class or in my school, and being too big to play with my age group. So really identifying with older kids because I couldn't hurt them as easily by playing with them. Not really being able to play with my younger siblings because I would always hurt them because I was so big. So it was a real awkward transitional period, but I'm glad I got to do it away from, lack of a better term, the BS that was going on back in Pasadena.
Wow. That's profound. A couple of things there, Rodney, that stand out for me. First, it's kind of funny how everybody has their own burdens to bear, but we often don't think about what somebody else is dealing with because we're so busy dealing with our own stuff. I grew up as a short kid. Parents are short, grandparents are short. I've never been 6 foot. And so to me, as a preteen, that was the biggest deal in the world. Right. Girls don't like short guys. Short guys can't be confident. And this, that, and the other. And I was so obsessed with that. So to hear that somebody was tall and that lent to awkwardness and kind of feeling like they needed to keep to themselves, that's a totally different side of the coin for me.
Yeah, I used to actually keep my hands in my pockets all the time because I was overly conscious about how long my arms were.
Wow.
It's like everybody during that time doesn't like something about themselves, and I thought I was the only one.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. Have you been back, or did you ever go back to the old neighborhoods?
Yes, and it was about 2 or 3 years later where we went back, and we actually went back to our neighbors were my mother's drug dealers.
Wow.
And plenty of stories about that. I don't know if I wrote about it down on fatherpreneurship.com, but, one night, their house got raided, and they knew it was coming because the day that the undercover officer came to buy the drugs from them, the mother of the house kicked me out, and they were making their plans on how they're going to avoid being arrested.
Okay.
So they get raided, the cops find nothing, and one night I get kicked out of the house, and our friendly neighborhood drug dealers come to our house, take my mom to the back room. She told me the story later, but they had, they were carrying guns and saying where were the drugs, because they couldn't find the drugs they hid. Come to find out, their dog dug them up.
Whoa, really?
The dog dug them up. They believed her story. They didn't kill her that night, thankfully.
Good Lord.
And so we go back. It was a weird thing. I people can't, if you've never lived in the hood, you really don't understand. But we went back because they were friends. It's weird, I know. We went back. We visited all the people in the neighborhood. We visited them. It was awkward, but they chatted it up, and then we saw some other friends and went back to Sacramento. And having never been back, I actually have it in my heart. One of the deep concerns in my heart is to go back, because Pasadena is always seen as the place where the Rose Bowl happens. But the ghetto parts of Pasadena are completely ignored, and it's a part of one of my visions to go back and help in many ways, not just one.
That's wild. You mentioned being from Pasadena originally, growing up there, and I instantly got images of glamour, Southern California.
California is a very deceptive place in the eye of people who don't live there, especially Southern California. Because in Southern California, Los Angeles County, people see on TV every year during Christmas, there's a place called Christmas Tree Lane, which I lived not far from at all. Okay. But if you go 1 mile and turn left, you'll be in the complete ghetto. You go another mile and turn right, you're back in Beverly Hills. It's a really weird dynamic that to this day I can't understand how complete wealth can be right next door to complete poverty and never intermingle. And that just goes back, we can get into conversations about segregation, all that stuff, but, because there are literal walls in between the communities, big brick walls that go on for half a mile or to a mile that keep the communities separated. So you can have drive-bys and drug dealing on one side, and then on the other side it's, TV, movie cameras, movies being shot. It's the most weird, thing you'll ever know if you live in California.
And so coming out of that, at least for your early years, Rodney, you've now become such a big advocate for fatherhood. Even before you started Fatherpreneurship, you were a very hardworking man. So your mom obviously was able to pass some really good values on to you. But what kind of father figures did you have? What role models did you have to teach you some of these things that you're practicing as a father now?
So what's amazing is, even though my mother and father weren't married, and my dad is not my biological father, but he's the one who raised me, my grandfather were my examples of manhood. So I still had an example. I still had access to men, and my example was hard working. So that's where, that sort of was ingrained in me. And my dad was in the food and beverage, restaurant management industry. So I would see him, work long hours. I'd see him come home at night. We'd be eating dinner, meaning my siblings and I, and he wouldn't eat so we could eat. I would see this, and my grandfather was, former Navy man. He worked for the post office until they forced him into retirement. He drove trucks for them. So I saw consistent action from the men in my life. Whenever my mother needed something, my grandfather would be there. So these are the images that shaped my paradigm of what manhood was. So even though I lived in all these kind of things going on, gangs were surrounding me, violence was surrounding me, drugs were surrounding me, but it never touched me by the grace of God. And my example was, what I see outside is exactly what I don't want to do. What I see my dad and my grandfather is what I want to do. And so every negative image I had, I said, I'm going to do the opposite. That's really how, I formed my paradigm. You know.
Oh, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. Just those two father figures were able to counteract all the negativity out in the neighborhood.
Yeah, because there really weren't any positive images of, you know, manhood.
Of man,
Yeah. Either you were a drug dealer who dropped off a bunch of babies, or, you know, you were locked up, or you were so old you weren't a player in the game, you know, which is rare.
Yeah, amazing. And so, as a father right now, you've got two beautiful kids. What are some of the things that, if they're not keeping you up at night, some of the things that maybe you're concerned with, that you want to make sure you get right?
I want to completely transform my life. I'm on the journey. I've been on it for a while.
Yeah.
But, you know, I want to completely transform myself in the way that all my children remember was me being there. They see me operating in my purpose. So right now it's still sort of a, what's the word? It's a grind process.
Yes.
Where, you know, I still work for a corporate entity, but I get to do it from home. I'm still growing an online business, but I get to do it from home. They see me, you know, do hangouts and interviews, you know, and speaking is on the horizon as well. And I want them to only see me earning money and living my life in my purpose and not doing it for someone or something else. You know, because that's how I want them to live.
I love that. And that a lot of that, I'm in a similar position as well. You know, my 8-year-old, I have two sons, ages 8 and 5. And my 8-year-old, he had a day off, teacher work day, yesterday. Now, Daddy still had to work. He wanted to play board games, video games, wrestle, play soccer, the whole night. Daddy had to work. And at a certain point, he said, you know, Daddy, you're going to need glasses soon because you're always staring at the computer.
True.
And that kind of hurt my feelings.
Yep.
Kind of hurt my feelings because he was calling me out.
Yep.
I was spending endless hours on the computer. Now, this wasn't just playing Tetris or anything. I was on my grind, and I'm fortunate enough to own my business and to work in my purpose. But it's still, a lot of us entrepreneurs are still in that phase where even if we're doing what we're called to do, we haven't yet scaled our business and our systems to the point where we can work fewer hours and still have more impact.
Exactly.
So hopefully my son won't be telling me too much longer, Daddy, you're going to need glasses soon, because I'll be wrestling with him, I'll be playing soccer with him, and then maybe I'll work 2, 3, 4 hours. But most of my time, whenever he's around anyway, I'll be able to focus on him.
Children, what comes out of our children's mouths is our report card as parents.
Oh, dude.
You know, and I know where I am based on what my son is saying because, you know, I've done plenty of interviews where I've talked about my vision, and he'll be either playing, when he was younger, like playing on the phone, and he would say, Papa, what, you're on the computer because you want to be present and engaged? I'm like, what is a 3-year-old saying this for? And what really, you know, helped me really get solidified in this journey was one day my wife asked my son, he was 3 at the time, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he genuinely said this, and he said it multiple times on different occasions. He said, I want to be a daddy like Papa. And it wasn't like I want to be a fireman, you know. It's, I want to be a daddy like Papa.
Wow.
And you talk about my heart crying. But I was like, if I could cry right now, I would.
Oh, my gosh.
I was like, I'm doing something right. You know, that the words that come out of your children's mouth about your parenting they're 100% truth from their point of view. And you can't get mad about it. It's because, well, you are on the computer all day.
It's the truth,
You know, my son's like, Papa, he'll tell my wife, Papa, I want some more time with Papa. He doesn't play with me. I'm like, oh, I got to get off this computer somehow and go play with him because that's the purpose. That's the point.
Rodney, we're going to wrap up because we've taken up a lot of your time, and I think your daughter's waking up. But there's one question that I do want to ask you. This is a sort of a time capsule question. So let's say, Rodney, it's about 30 years from now, and at this point your kids have their own kids. What would you like to say to your future kids 30 years from today, 2045, what would you like to say to them about this moment in time, this moment in their lives, why you made the decisions you made, and why you did the things you did?
I'd be at probably one of their weddings or graduations or some kind of celebration, probably at their Thanksgiving dinner where they've invited some strangers over.
Love it.
And I'd say to my son and my daughter, back in 2008 and 2014, you both had a turn at saving my life, literally, where before you came along, I believed in working hard and not smart. I believed in trading time for money, and I almost died because of it. And Randall, my son, I thank you for showing me and being the catalyst for me to make the decision of you over what I thought was how I was supposed to do things. And my daughter, Robin, who came into this earth as an organic only baby who only will eat organic foods, showed me how to get my healthy lifestyle in order and helped me to tap into the side of me that loves so much deeper. Because of you two, I know how I now understand God's love even better because of how you have affected my heart and my mind. Because of you, I'm here and I'm walking in my purpose, and I have X, Y, and Z men who I've helped change their life as proof that your life not only changed mine, but it helped me walk in my purpose and help other people do the same thing. These many families now are present and engaged with their children and their grandchildren now because I got a vision from you. I love you so deeply, so dearly, and so sincerely. And I'm so glad that I was able to make the decision to start sowing my life into you because you give me life back.
Mic drop right there. That's powerful, brother. That's powerful. Guys, whew, a little tingly. All right, let's bring it back now. Let's bring it back. That was really powerful, Rodney. Thank you for sharing that. And that's always an interesting question for us parents to answer. You know, you mentioned a few minutes ago about how what our kids say is essentially our parenting report card. Yeah. Well, imagine 30 years from now, what are they going to say? What's our report card over the next 30 years going to be? Yeah. I think you really summed up a very nice place for one to be, living in one's purpose, sowing into one's kids, and giving them the credit due for changing our lives.
They changed my life.
Hopefully we can get Rodney back on the show. Our time is up. He obviously has a lot more stories and wisdom to share. I told y'all this show is going to be good today. I told you. But you've been listening to Mr. Rodney Kellum from Fatherpreneurship.com. Rodney, when can we expect to see you on the speaking circuit? Because you need to be out there talking to the people, man.
Well, I completely agree. And that's something that's been bubbling under the works. I've actually been getting more entrenched into people that are deeply involved in that. I officially say I'm open to come speak to fatherhood and parenting groups. I'm open to come and speak life into anybody that feels like they don't know how to or why they should change their lifestyle to be a more present and engaged father or mother or parent, whatever you may be, and just allow me to walk in my purpose and to sow into you. That's something that I've already said yes to. Just got to start creating dates and venues.
Love it, love it. Well, we will be waiting on pins and needles for that time. This has been Rodney Kellum, Fatherpreneurship.com, and you are listening to the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. Thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next show. Bye for now.
Fear not. Although this chapter of Bravepreneur Parents Academy has come to its conclusion, we have many more adventures for you and your brave little heroes. Head over to bravequest.me for access to the Brave Quest Journal, an interactive activity playbook that rewards your little ones with points for accomplishing tasks that build character and unleash your child's inner superhero all before bedtime. We look forward to having you join us for more adventures next time on Bravepreneur Parents Academy.